Welcome to another episode of the Leo Alves Podcast. And in today's episode, I have someone who I very much admire in the industry, someone's work who I've been I've been following for a good while now, who is now or has been a mentor of mine for the past year. And his name is Jordan Syatt. And I thought I'd get him onto today's episode just because I'd love to have a conversation with him and have a podcast, and I know it'd definitely be worth listening to. So I won't say too much. I'll let you, Jordan, introduce yourself a bit, because even though I've been following you for a while, it'd be wrong for me to assume everyone who listens knows you. So I guess you can say a little bit about yourself, and then we can get stuck into the episode.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm honored to be here. I appreciate you very much. You know how much love I have for you. And I'm a short, bald, nerdy guy who likes to lift weights and help people develop a healthier relationship with food. That's really the majority of it. I have a daughter now. She's like 9 weeks old. So that's very exciting and a big part of my life. But yeah, that's pretty much it, man. I'm really happy to be able to talk with you. And I can't wait to finally see you in person. I was looking forward to it at IFS, but
Oh,
my
yeah.
daughter was a little bit late. So wasn't able to this year, but one day soon I'm gonna finally get to give you a big hug, and I can't wait.
I'm looking forward to that as well. And actually, before now you mentioned that, I actually had something that I was going to mention towards the end, or even off camera, but you've mentioned it now. I actually mentioned this to Mike the other day just because it was relevant to like tax information. But obviously, as you know, you've been a mentor of mine for the past year, and I used to live in the UK, but because of the advice and the guidance that you guys have been providing me, I'm now able to move to Portugal as a freelancer on the back of the advice you guys have been giving me. I have no idea if Mike mentioned that to you, but I mentioned it to him, and so yeah, it's just it's been helping a lot. So again, if you do come to Portugal, it doesn't have to be with IFS, but you can always send over a message and we'll go for
Mike did
coffee
not
or
tell me
something.
that, but I'm really, really glad to hear that. It makes me so happy, bro. I love that. So huge congrats.
Yeah, that was Yeah, that was a big move, but it felt like a powerful one because it just because obviously I've been growing this for a long time, but to be able to make a move like that just felt like wow, like I am really, you know, in the world of freelance and just really building up my own thing, which was a very good feeling. So Jordan, thank you very much for that.
Man, huge pleasure and amazing honor. And I love seeing your growth, and you're helping a lot of people and you're doing a great job of it. So huge congrats. You've earned it.
Yeah, thank you. So how is your wife and how is your 2-month-old daughter? How is being a father like? Is it what you've imagined so far? I listened to
Yeah,
your
I mean,
podcast episode about becoming a father, and I was like, wow, like I'm so excited for you.
yeah, I mean, so far it's great. Like, my wife is doing well. Thank you for asking. The recovery was good. It's a lot. It's a big trauma for a woman to give birth, like more than I ever realized. Like, obviously, being there and seeing it and, experiencing it on the back end, I had never realized how much of a trauma it really is, physically and mentally. Fortunately, my wife is doing really great. She's recovered. She's back into health and fitness now, and she's working out. So she's doing great. And our daughter's awesome, man. It's funny. People are like, well, what's it like to be a dad? And I still don't even really feel like a dad, if that makes sense, because it's like she's very easy. Like, my daughter is very easy. Apparently, there's a term for it. Um, they call this type of baby a sucker baby because they sucker you into having another baby very quickly. Because she's so relaxed, she's so calm, she barely ever cries, she sleeps really, really well. I mean, it's very easy, and it's weird because she can't talk, so I don't feel like a dad yet. Because, like, yeah, like, I'll feed her and I'll stay up with her and I'll change her and all that stuff. So I'm doing dad things, but in my mind, when I think of dad, I think of like um, being there to support and to have hard conversations and to lead you in the right direction and all that. So it doesn't even necessarily feel like that yet because I can't have conversations with her. But overall, it's amazing. And I mean, even today we took her to get some shots, and she got a couple shots in her legs, and like she like made a couple like crying faces, and like she cried for like maybe 10 seconds, then it was over. And she's just so chill. She's a very relaxed baby.
That's awesome to hear. I remember one of your biggest would I say, I don't know if concerns are maybe
Yeah,
concern is the
yeah.
right word, but you were saying like about the lack of sleep that you're potentially going to have. So it doesn't even sound like that side is too bad either.
The first month was brutal. Like the first
Okay.
month was very difficult. Um, but ever since the first, like after 5 weeks, she's been sleeping from 10 to 8
Oh
every day.
wow.
Which I know is a blessing because I know, I mean, I've put that on social media and I've had people tell me their 3 month old, their 6 month old, their 1 year old, their 3 year old still don't sleep through the night. So I know not every baby is different, every child, every human is different. So that's why I'm sort of nervous about the next one because you never know what they're going to be like. But so, I mean, she's just been so easy. It's been incredible.
That's good to hear. And so would you say there's been like with it, you said 9 weeks old. Would you say
Yeah.
what would you say has been like maybe one of the most like amazing moments from the past 9 weeks? I'm sure every moment has been amazing, but has there been a particular moment where you were like, wow, like that's really impressive that she's been able to do that?
Yeah. So there's been a bunch. There's it's funny because I remember, hearing people talk about their babies doing things like, I don't know, holding their head up. And I'm like, all right, oh, congrats, your baby held his head up. But like then when she was able to finally hold her, because babies, they're just like a blob.
Yeah.
There's no muscle, there's no nothing. So like her head's all over the place. And finally for her to be able to pick her head up and turn it side to side, I was like, whoa, that's amazing. Um, I think something today just happened for the first, like she's been more and more smiley lately. Like if you smile at her, she'll smile back, which is amazing. Like it's very interesting, like to see that progression. But today was her first time laughing, where she just like, she connected laughs. It wasn't just like a, it was like a, like she just continuously laughed. And it was amazing to watch that. So that was like, you don't know what's going on in their brain, and she's not going to remember any of this, but that was a very cool thing to see this morning as we were getting her ready to put her in the car. She just started laughing out of nowhere, which was really fun.
Yeah. Are you still would I say I don't know if documenting is the right word, but I know you were releasing, I think it was a YouTube video once a week. Are you still doing that?
Yes. So I literally have had one in my queue to hit publish on for the last like 4 or 5 days. And I need to do it. It's
Yeah.
literally ready to go. So yeah, I've been a little bit lazy with it. The whole video is done, ready to go, all that. So yeah, I should be doing one a week. I think now it's gonna be about 2 weeks since the last one went live. But yeah, that'll be live either later today or early tomorrow.
Yeah, and I only mentioned that because, as you said, she's not going to remember any of it, but she will have those videos to look back on one day, and I'm sure she'll love those the same way. I'm sure both of us have looked back on videos of us when we were young, and it's always really nice to see. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
it's cool to see, your parents when they were younger and to see you as a kid and like all these things that you don't even remember. It's very cool.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So yeah, I'm really happy for you, and I'm sure those 9 weeks have flown by, and they'll continue to fly by. Um, Anyway, I thought it would be really so I had a few topics in mind that I thought would be really cool to speak to you about, and that I think the listener would be quite interested to hear, and I think it could interested to hear, and I think it could be quite helpful for them. And now, so I think a really important one is the fact that number one, so it's the 1st of November today. I'll probably only publish this podcast episode maybe next Monday, but I feel like mid-November is this kind of like really weird phase for fitness journeys. I feel like a
Mm,
lot of people are now coming into a time where they're just like, if they live in the US and Thanksgiving is coming up, Halloween's just passed, and there's Christmas next month, and maybe what, is it really worth starting now, or should I just wait for next year? Should I even do anything? I don't even know what to do. And then I feel like there's 101 thoughts going around, and then it gets really overwhelming. I know there's probably going to be a lot of context to this, but I'm sure I know you're probably one of the best people at putting it very simply. How would someone who's maybe not really done much before just even navigate this holiday period, and maybe not even navigate, maybe just start?
yeah, it's an amazing question. It's very topical right now. It's what people are considering and they're worried about. Um, I'll say this. there isn't a one size fits all with this. Everyone is different. I know in the fitness industry, a lot of people hate on New Year's resolutions and say like, oh, why wait? Why wait until January? Start now, start now. And if you want to start now, that's amazing. And I'll talk about that in a second. But there's a tremendous number of people who start things on January 1st and change their life forever. There's actually a lot of research showing that New Year's resolutions can be very powerful. Now, obviously, the majority of people who make a New Year's resolution don't stick with it, but the majority of people who start a business fail with their business. So it doesn't mean no one should start a business. It's still like, if you want to start a business, try, go for it. But the idea of not doing it just because many people idea, and it's actually, there are many people who do succeed with it. So if you're the person who's like, you know what, I'm going to wait for January 1st, that's fine, but make sure you commit to begin on January 1st, and like you really go hard. On the other end of the spectrum, there are other people who are like, no, I want to start now. Like, why wait for this arbitrary day? And I respect that as well. Either way, whatever you do, here's what's important to remember. The holidays, whether you're celebrating Christmas or Hanukkah or Thanksgiving or New Year's, whatever it is, they're only a few days throughout the next 6 to 8 weeks. They're not, the majority of days are normal days, right? They're like, here in the States, we've got Thanksgiving, that's one day. Christmas, that's like 1, maybe 2 days, depending, New Year, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, all that stuff. Hanukkah, technically 8 days, but I'm Jewish, I celebrate Hanukkah. Any like Jew will tell you it's really, you only celebrate the first 2 days. You're not celebrating every single day and eating like an asshole the whole time. So you've got 2 days for that. New Year's, that's 1 day. So in total, you might have between 4 to 6 days of actual celebration over about a 6-week time frame. 4 to 6 days. That's not much at all. What people really struggle with is things like leftovers, and often being in the holiday mindset of, oh, well, it's Thanksgiving week or it's Christmas week, so I'm just going to eat like shit this whole week. That's stupid. That is where people really set themselves back. So I think whether you decide to start on January 1 or you decide to start right now, almost irrelevant from the perspective of just stay consistent on the regular days and fully enjoy yourself on the holidays. Enjoy yourself. Don't count calories. Don't worry about being on a diet. Eat what you want to eat. Enjoy yourself. But the rest of the time, do your best to make sure you're focusing on whole, minimally processed foods, making sure you're hitting your protein, getting your fiber, getting your steps in, trying to get a couple workouts in every week. I mean, as long as you're doing this on a day-to-day basis, if you take 6 to 8 days over the course of the next 2 months and don't hit that, like, it's fine. But if you do that, you're not getting fat between Thanksgiving and New Year's. You get fat between New Year's and Thanksgiving. It's not that 6-week time frame that you get fat in. It's like the year time frame that you get fat in. So whether you start on January 1 or not, you can still do things now to help you get through the holiday season and enjoy it and set yourself up for success in the new year.
That's very well put. There's a few ways that I was thinking, like a few things were coming to mind and things that I'd love to like mention on the back of what you just said as well. Do you think that potentially people, maybe even the listener, might be procrastinating it? Because again, like you said, nothing wrong with starting on January the 1st, as long as you do make that commitment. But do you think a part of that procrastination is because maybe many people try and take on way too much too soon, and maybe more than they feel like they have to do more than they actually have to do?
Oh, bro, 100%. Yeah, I think a lot of it is, I'll give you an example. I hate doing the mile test. So my coach Alex Viata makes me test my mile once every like 6 to 8 weeks or something, and I hate it. And when I tell you I hate doing this mile test, like I dread it the entire week leading up to doing it. And it's only like a 6-minute test, right? At most, and ideally a little bit less. It's not that long of a test, but those 6 minutes or less are absolutely hell. And I will delay it, and I'll delay it, and I'll delay it, and I'll procrastinate until it just has to be done. And I'm not saying that's a good thing, but it's the truth because it's something that I hate. So many people, they'll procrastinate, getting their nutrition in check, getting their workouts in check because it's something they hate. And they think that it's going to be hell. Now, the reality is this: I don't care who you are, what you do. if you try to run a mile as fast as you can, that's going to be hell. I don't care who you are. Like that, it's just always going to suck. Training and nutrition, it doesn't have to be hell. And a lot of people don't realize this. They don't realize that getting your diet in check and exercising several times a week, it doesn't have to be awful. It doesn't mean you're necessarily going to like it. It doesn't mean you're necessarily going to like, oh, I love this and it's so fun and I enjoy it. But it does mean that it doesn't mean you don't have to suffer. It's not the same as suffering. It's like it's slight changes to your current lifestyle that will lead to a better outcome. And when you understand that, it's much easier just to start today because you're not making these huge changes. You're not doing a juice cleanse. You're not going on keto. You're not cutting out all carbohydrates. You're not working out 7 days a week for 3 hours a day. You're doing small little things that make big differences over a long period of time.
Yeah, that's yeah, exactly that. And in addition to everything we've said as well, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, I feel like maybe when it gets more into December, maybe after the first week, or even the entire month, depending on the individual, I've always said, and again, it's going to depend on the individual, but I always think that maybe weight-related goals are something that maybe you don't have to perhaps focus on as much in December. And if anything, in December, if you feel like you're someone that struggles with your weight, then maybe just, yeah, focusing on your weight within the December period probably isn't the best idea. And in fact, the December period could be the best time to focus on maybe strength training related goals, not to burn more calories or not to lose fat, but because it's just because it's good for you and because you want to get stronger. And I feel like, yeah, the December period is probably the best time to just focus on that.
Yeah, bro, I think that's a great idea. Focus on your performance, focus on your health. Absolutely. I think that's a really good, and not to mention, if you are eating more than you should, at least those calories will be going towards muscle growth and all of that, and it will help you in the back end. So I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, exactly that. And you know, like just in addition to everything else we've said already as well, I feel like, and I'm sure this has happened to you, where obviously a lot of people try and take on way too much too soon, so that's why they procrastinate, etc. How much, and I'm trying to think how I can phrase this question, would you say maybe, let's say me and you would give some, okay, say like you give someone a program or I give someone a program which we know will work quite well, and then you'll get a lot of people who, and again, I know you definitely had this in the past for how long you've been in the industry. Someone will look at that program and just be like, is that it? Like, is that what I'm gonna do? Like, that's way too easy. And I'm just like, wait, if if you're doing 3 sets of let's say deadlifts or 2 sets of deadlifts and you're actually pushing yourself, you wouldn't be saying that. And to be
Correct.
honest, yeah, I don't even know what my question is, but I feel like that's just something that really springs to mind on the strength training part and on the December period part as well. But yeah, that's just something I've heard in the past, and yeah,
Yeah,
it's a very interesting thing, I
people
think.
think that they need to be doing 17 different exercises and all these crazy variations, and it happens less to me now, but if I was doing more one-on-one coaching, it would happen more often. But it happened many times where I'd send someone their program and they'd be like, why are there only 5 exercises on this day? They're like, do the fucking workout and then don't judge it by the cover. Don't judge the book by its cover. Do the workout and then come back to me. And without fail, every time they'd be like, okay, never mind. That was way harder than I thought it was going to be. And if they came back and said that still was very easy, I'd be like, if that was easy, then you didn't lift heavy enough. It's like, if the difficulty of the program is based on your effort. If you don't make it difficult, then that's on you, not on me. 5 exercises is more than enough to be a very effective workout. But the effectiveness of the workout is dictated by the intensity you bring to it. If you tell me to do squats for 3 sets of 5 and I just do my body weight, well, of course that's not going to be difficult. But if you say do 3 sets of 5 squats and I use 90 or 85% of my 1 rep max, well, yeah, that's all of a sudden going to be way more difficult. It's way more intense. So yeah, it's about the intensity you bring to the workout, not necessarily how long the workout is or how many exercises are in it. And also, for what it's worth, I think one of the major goals of a workout should be feeling better when you leave the gym versus when you walk in. Like, you should walk out feeling energized. Like if you're walking out of the gym demoralized every single time and you can't walk out and you're throwing up and like you're exhausted, like I want you to walk out of the gym ready for the rest of your day, not so demoralized that you can't think or function. Like we work out for our health. We work out to be better and stronger and perform better in life. If your workouts are demolishing you so you can't perform in life, then it's clearly too intense for you.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously obviously online coaching, there's some limitations that come with it. One being the fact that you're not there with the person in the moment, and the reason why I specifically mention online coaching is that's just because that's only what I do. And yeah, one limitation is the fact that you're not there in the moment with that person, and you can't maybe feed back to them maybe if they could do more or less weight. But I've always thought that, and I actually have an automated video response for this now. Anyone who, because I've heard this so much, and it will be along the lines of the statement like, oh, I done deadlifts today. Is it okay if I rest less time in between deadlifts? And so instead of like 2.5 or instead of 3 minutes, can I just like rest 30 seconds? And then it will be, as you said, if you only need to, if you don't need to rest like 2.5, 3.5 minutes between each set of deadlifts, then you are definitely not going hard enough. And to me, that's just a really, I almost love it when they say that to me, because then I'm like, there, I know now for a fact that you need to bring maybe a little bit more intensity to your workouts, increase the weight, and yeah, and I feel like, yeah, that's just hence the automated video response now that I have for that, because I've been asked it so many times. And
smart, very smart.
Yeah, it had to. Yeah, after like the fourth time, I was just like, you know what, I should be making a video for this and just have something on deck. Yeah. So that was just something. But yeah, that's just that was a really that's been a really useful video. Now, I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to maybe expand on upon that topic before I actually wanted to go on to something else.
Yeah, let's
Okay.
do it, man.
So recently, so I was looking at your Instagram page just before we were starting the video call. I say just before, probably about, it was this morning, and I saw a post that you made. It was a little while back, and I really, really loved it. I loved it, and I remember at the time, on the day you released it, I shared it on my story just because I agreed with it so much, and I feel like actually this is a statement that I've heard quite a lot. And it's the statement of the fact that all diets, or I think it was like 95% of diets fail.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And it was a long bit of content from you. I think the video was like 3 minutes long, but worth every second of listening to. And I feel like I would just love you to expand on that topic a little bit more here. I don't have maybe my question around it would be the fact that I feel like this statement is recycled so much. I don't know where that study is from. I feel like if anything, that could do more damage hearing that as well, because then you're kind of telling people that they are going to fail before they start, which isn't true as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
So there's a lot. There's a lot with this. And I'll say, like, to go with what you're saying, like, it could be damaging hearing that. If it was true, if it was a fact, then a fact is a fact. And like, we should be able to talk about it. But it's not a fact. And we have to look at the research that this was based around. So there was a research study many years ago that it just looked at people who went on a diet. Okay. Now, how many fucking diets are there?
Yeah.
There's a million diets. It didn't track which diet they were following. It didn't track their were they a flexible dieter, were they a rigid dieter, were they cutting out all carbs, were like, it didn't track any of that. They just looked at people, okay, these people say they want to lose weight, so they're going to lose weight. And they judge success based on if they were able to lose a certain amount of weight and then keep a certain amount of weight off. So I believe, off the top of my head, I believe that the amount of weight that they had to keep off. So if they lost 40 pounds or more, then they were successful. But let's say someone lost like 39 pounds, unsuccessful. And by the study standards, it's like 39 pounds is a lot, but like if they had to lose at least 40 and then keep that off. But so let's say someone lost 39 pounds and kept off 30 of those pounds, that was looked at as a failure in this study, which is crazy to me because they're a net 30 pounds down. And it's like, that's extraordinary. Not everyone has 40 pounds to lose. So The number one issue is that I think, but the major issue though, because the stat or the phrase that's thrown around is 95% of diets fail. That's what they say. 95% of diets fail. So why even bother? Well, number one, well, which diets? Because which diets are you talking about? And the issue, I mean, this study was done so long ago. The issue is that now I guarantee you that if they looked at the success rate of like your clients or my clients, they would see a much higher success rate with weight loss and weight loss maintenance. And why is that? Well, it's because we're not just giving them a diet and saying, yeah, good luck. See you in 5 years. We're saying, no, I'm going to educate you. I'm going to work with you. I'm going to troubleshoot problems with you. I'm going to deal with not only the physical, but also the mental side of this. So, because now people are realizing so much of weight loss and health is not just physical, but also mental. So you have someone who, for example, look at my weight fluctuations. People see my weight fluctuations and freak out as I'm losing weight. And the number of people that tell me they would have quit because their weight spiked up. It's like, well, it wasn't the diet's fault. It was your perception of what was happening, and then you quit. So it's not necessarily that the diet is the issue as much as you're not being consistent because you think it isn't working when in reality it is. There's so many factors and variables here going on that to say it's just 95% of diets don't fail. It's like, no, 95% of people give up before they've given the diet a chance to actually work. That's like what's actually happening. And I would say the vast majority of diets are really stupid. Juice cleanses and detoxes and cutting out carbs and all this stuff. Like most diets are really stupid. But when we look at the most effective diets and the most sustainable ones, the success rate is dramatically higher than 5% success rate. I promise you that. And one day I would love to be a part of one of those studies. I would love to be a part of one of those studies, work with, I don't know, 50 to 100 people and actually have like group sessions, teach them how to read the scale, teach them how to do this stuff, and then redo this study and say, well, listen, all right, so here we have a much more flexible approach. And look, we've got a 62% success rate. I mean, I think that is far more realistic. Now, there is going to be a large percent of people who don't succeed, especially on the first try. But the reality that we have to remember is this is a lifelong thing. I think anytime you put a timeline on a diet, you're actually setting it up to fail. If you say, hey, you need to lose a certain amount in this time frame, then we're going to track afterwards, you're putting a tremendous amount of pressure on the person to lose weight more quickly, which often creates more unsustainable habits. So I would love to see this done over the long term, over like a 5 to 7 year period where maybe they mess up the first time, maybe they mess up the second time, but by the 5th time rolls around, they've actually lost weight and they've maintained it. Because sometimes that's what happens. I mean, very rarely do you ever get something right the first time you try it. It's trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. Same thing with nutrition and diet, and especially with nutrition being something that's so ingrained within you from the time you're born, whether it's how your family eats, religious cultures, based on where you are in the world and what your environment has available to you, socioeconomic status. There are so many things that come into play when we're talking about what you're eating. So changing these habits might take 2, 3, 4, 5 tries. And that's normal. It's not weird or bad. It's just, it's going to take some time.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any idea when that study was done? Or like more or less what year?
I think, and I could be wrong, I believe it was done in the 1960s. I
Oh, wow.
think, but I can't tell you for certain. I can find out though.
And back then, I feel like I might be complete. I don't feel like I'm wrong. Back then, there was even more misinformation about nutrition. I feel like
God, it's terrible. Yeah, absolutely terrible.
so that's
100%.
obviously going to be a factor as well. So why do you feel like that's caught on so much? And not only has it caught on so much, it's still going very strong even today in 2022.
I think because losing weight is difficult. It's very difficult. And right now, there's a huge push against weight loss. And I think there are many political reasons that people are trying to push against weight loss and all this stuff. And I think that anything that's very difficult, people are always looking for a justification not to do. And here's the perfect justification. Well, if 95% don't work, then why bother at all? Not to mention it's because of the patriarchy that we should be losing weight anyway and like fighting all this nonsense to begin with. But it's if they can find a justification to not try at all, then they will do it. And not just they, but like we as humans, if we don't want to do something and it's very, very difficult, we will try to find any reason to not do it. That's human nature. We're going to try and find the path of least resistance. So I think it's very easy for people to latch on to this. Oh, well, 95 don't work, so I'm just not going to do it anyway. And it's funny because even if only 5% succeed, let's say let's try this. I'm not good with math. You're very well aware. So I'm going to take my calculator. So let's say we have 1 million people. So what is 95% of 1 million? That's 950,000.
Okay.
Right? So that means out of 1 million people, 950,000 would have failed, but 50,000 would have succeeded. 50,000 people would have succeeded in this scenario. It's like, that's huge. You could be one of those 50,000 people that would have succeeded with that. Now, ideally, I would obviously like to see a higher success rate. And I think with the type of coaching that you provide and that we in the science-based industry provide, we see a much higher success rate than 5%. But what a defeatist mentality to say, oh, well, only 5% is going to succeed, so I'm not even going to try. If that were the case, if that's what we did in everything in life, there would be no businesses, because I actually think, I'm pretty sure there's an over 95% failure rate in starting your own business. The vast majority of people who try to start their own business fail within the first year. I think it's over 97%. It definitely, from a fitness industry perspective, especially from opening a gym, over 95% of gym owners fail within the first year of trying. Over 95%. So if we were all just had this defeatist mentality and didn't do anything because there's a relatively low success rate, then no one would ever succeed in anything. That's how it works. So the statistic is wrong. It's cherry picked, and they use it to try and get people to not do it, because they'll use it as a justification. But even if it was right, which it isn't, it's still not a justification to not try.
Yeah, as you said. First, I didn't even know about the business statistic. I feel like I heard about that very recently. I feel like, as you said, it can become a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy sort of thing if you hear that and then you convince yourself, oh, what's the point if the majority can't do that? But do you think that's a part of, and I'm trying to remember the name of the movement, and it's such a big movement. I can't believe I'm forgetting the name. It has a lot to perhaps do with something at all sides, health at all sides.
Health at every
Yes,
size.
yes. I don't know how that slipped my mind. I was reading a book about health at every size recently, because I like to read books from all points of views. I don't want to put myself in the echo chamber. I never want to do that. I would say there were some parts of that book I was just like, I don't know about this, but yeah. So do you think it maybe has something to do with that in some sort of way?
100%. That movement has been a huge reason for why people have not been trying to lose weight. And it's actually been really bad, because I was literally just talking with Mike about this. We did a podcast before you and I hopped on. I get messages every week, multiple times a week, from people saying, I really fell deep into the health at every size movement, and I was already overweight, and now I'm like 40 pounds even heavier than I was before. And now I've got high blood pressure, high cholesterol. I'm on the verge of diabetes, all these things. The health at every size movement is a very dangerous movement. And I will say, I think it started with good intent. It started to try to help, number one, destigmatize people of different sizes, because they do face more issues socially. Like, there's no question, someone who's either severely overweight or severely underweight, they will face more social pressures and stigmas and prejudices. There's no question, it's very clear in the research that someone who's very overweight or underweight, and overweight suffers more than underweight from social pressure. But even then, people who are underweight, we've all heard people say, God, eat a damn hamburger or something like that. Like, they still struggle with that tremendously. So I think a lot of it was they wanted to help destigmatize people based on their size. They wanted people to understand that, when that movement really started to come out of the woodwork, fitness industry standards of leanness and health were way too low. They're like just shredded all the time. Like you should have a six pack. If you don't have a six pack, then you're fat basically. And they're like, well, that's not accurate. Like you can have some body fat and still be super, super healthy. And I actually like that part of the movement where it's like, listen, let's bring back realistic body standards. The issue is, and I've said this a million times, the fitness industry runs on a pendulum of extremes. And like everything else in this industry, this has gone to a massive extreme where now they're saying you could literally be any size and still be healthy. And number one, no one would argue that you could be severely underweight and still be healthy. If you're severely underweight and you're malnourished, like, no, you cannot be healthy when you're severely underweight. So let's go the opposite. If you are severely overweight, ridiculously high body fat percentage, you are at an unbelievably higher risk of heart disease, health conditions, of metabolic disease, of having type 2 diabetes, of higher blood pressure, all these things. Not to mention, just from an anecdotal perspective, how many really old, really fat people have you seen? Like, and I mean really old, 80s, 90s, 100, people who are really, really old and really, really fat? Probably none. The vast majority of very old people that you see are actually pretty small. They're very lean, right? And it doesn't mean they weren't heavy at one time, but as they got older, they had to lose weight in order to stay healthier, or they would have died. Like this is a fact. We can look at the statistics and research on this. If you have a lot of excess body fat, you are infinitely more likely to die earlier and younger from any number of diseases. So you cannot be healthy at any size. That does not exist. But that movement is actually, I think, doing a lot more harm than good. And I have a very scary feeling in my gut that tells me our children and their children will look back on the posts that health at every, because everything is documented now. Like everything is there. There will be school assignments in which kids are told to go find and look at posts from Health at Every Size, in which people who are promoting Health at Every Size were saying you can be healthy. It doesn't matter your weight. It doesn't matter your size. But like, and they're going to find these posts. They're going to give school presentations on how these types of posts led to a higher death rate, a higher mortality rate of people in our generation because they were eating it up. No pun intended, because they were saying, oh, I can gain weight. And we're going to see dramatic increases in health issues because of these posts. And kids are going to be presenting on this in 50 to 100 years, going back, looking at history and saying, this is a huge mistake that we made.
Wow, mic drop. That was that example with the elderly generation as well was actually a really good example and something I'd never thought about. Actually, but it's very true when you do think about it. Wherever I've lived in any part of the world, I can't see I have seen many very overweight elderly people. So yeah,
Ever.
that's an amazing point.
Like, yeah,
And
they have some body fat, but like they're not obese.
mm,
And they're definitely not morbidly obese. The
mm,
older you get, the leaner you are. And for whatever it's worth, size really matters in general. I mean, this is why like bodybuilders have a
mhm,
very low lifespan. The
mhm,
amount of stress that it puts on your body and your heart to carry around all of this extra weight is very difficult and stressful. So that's one of the reasons why like I don't want to get huge. Like I've never wanted to like to go on these huge bulks and gain, like, listen, I have plenty of muscle. It's fine. I don't need to be big and jacked. I don't want to put way more stress on my body than I need to. Like I'm plenty. So, and for whatever it's worth, I think that this mindset that I just said is what the Health at Every Size movement was initially going for, was just let's have more realistic body standards. And unfortunately, it's just snowballed into something that's going to be killing people if it isn't already. And
mm,
actually, you know what? I think it already is, because we can look at people without question, the very obviously over the last 3 years now from the COVID pandemic, who were the people who were most likely to die from COVID? It was the people who were severely overweight and did not exercise on a regular basis.
mm,
Being severely overweight, having a higher body fat was a major risk factor for dying from COVID. It was a major, major risk factor. It's like, I would be shocked if there weren't people involved in there who had eaten up the Health at Every Size doctrine, didn't focus on losing weight, didn't focus on getting their health in check, got COVID and very sadly died as a result of it. Whereas maybe they could have lived if they had gotten their health in check earlier. You know, there's no question that this movement will be killing people.
mm. Yeah. And And to reference the more elderly population again, and I only bring this up because actually, and obviously it's very relevant to what we've been speaking about. Sometimes I've noticed that you make a comparison between Japanese people eating white rice and not being overweight. And coincidentally, that was a comparison I used to make as well because I lived in Japan for 15 months between 2020 and 2021. So that
Oh,
was
nice. That's awesome.
it was amazing. I had fun. So I was traveling around the country a bit, and that was number one. That was an observation I made myself. But number two, the reason why I bring this point up is that until this day, and I feel like you'll just find this quite interesting. Japan is the only country I've ever been to where I've actually seen the elderly population actively exercising outside in the park. I've been around Europe. I've lived in the USA as well. I've never seen it anywhere in Europe, and I've never seen it anywhere in the US. That comes to mind. And in Japan, I saw it so many times where elderly people would go to the park and they would just rap out chin-ups. And I was just
How
like,
crazy is that?
That was insane to me. And it was probably normal to them, but as someone who's grown up in the West, I just thought, wow, that's really impressive. And obviously, I'm sure this is a big part for not only obviously, there's going to be a lot of factors that as to why they have a big life expectancy, as to why maybe they have maybe one of the lowest BMIs in the world. And I've actually written an article on that, which I'll link in the show notes of this podcast episode. But one of them was the fact that I thought that was so impressive, and I feel like it was just something that they just do there. They exercise at an elderly age, and to see old guys just repping out chin-ups when I was just like, wow, this is awesome.
It's dude, I absolutely love it. It's actually, I saw similar things in Israel. As one of my favorite things about Israel is you go to almost any public park and there's free exercise equipment for everybody. There's exercise, like there's machines, there's exercise machines, and they're not loaded with tons of weight, but there are real exercise machines in almost every public park. And everywhere I go, I see 60, 70, 80-year-old men and women just on there spending time, and they'd be laughing and joking, but like they're moving and they're exercising and they're out in the sun. It's like it's no wonder that they're so much healthier than us. It's no wonder that they're out there and it's part of their life. Or like in Japan, I would imagine you saw a lot of them doing Tai Chi out in parks and doing things like that, like getting this movement in and almost like a meditative practice as well. It's extraordinary. And they can eat the foods they want and have it in moderation and be very, very healthy. They're not as gluttonous as we are here in the West.
Yeah, including white rice, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a very interesting fact. And it sounds like Israel has more or less the same sort of approach when it comes to health and fitness. Why do you think, maybe, do you have maybe any thoughts as to why maybe, I can't say I really see it in Europe or the USA, why maybe they don't provide those things as much in public spaces?
Man, now we could get into a real discussion about this. I can't say for certain, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, so I'm not going to go into conspiracy theories. But here, I'll tell you what. I love one of the things I love about like the UK and the US is the opportunity for someone to come and build a life for them and their family. I think capitalism is a really amazing system, but like anything, there are pros and cons to it. And I think one of the major cons that we're seeing definitely here in the US, and you could speak more to it in the UK than I could, but sometimes like where I've spent in London, for example, I've seen so many similarities to London and the US in terms of the vibe of people, is that it's just work. And it's not just like work, but people here in the US and often in London, from what I've seen, I'm sure in other parts of the UK, it's people live to work. And they grind and they hustle, and it's more and it's more and it's work and make money, da da da. And in other parts of the world, it's so much more relaxed. They work to live, right? Where it's, I mean, definitely in Israel, and you could tell me more about Japan and other parts of Europe. Like I would imagine Spain is a little bit more similar, where you do your work. And then, but then you go home and you spend time with your family and you relax and you work in order to live. You don't live in order to work. And when you live in an environment that really fosters family and community and overall health, you're more likely to have these things and have people sticking up for, let's put some free stuff here. Let's put some exercise equipment for people here, because families are going to be going to the park and doing this. And at least here, I just see people being like, work, 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 work. And that's it. And so when that is the mindset, everything else becomes like, work is the focus and everything else is in the background. Whereas in other parts of the world that I've seen, I think that you're mentioning here as well, is health and family and community are first, and work comes as just, you do it as a byproduct of needing to survive, but it's not your identity. It's not what you make up. And I think they're very well aware that if you die young, then what's the point of all of this anyway? Like, you're going to die young with a lot in your bank account. Like, that sucks. That's not good. I'd rather you live way longer and have some less in your bank account, but have a more fulfilled life. So I think they're living a more enlightened lifestyle of understanding what's really important.
I've always said, number one, there's two things I actually was going to mention on the back of that. Number one, I've always said I feel like London very much, and New York very much remind me of each other, London and New York. I feel like
Yes.
they're very similar cities in so many ways. I've been to New York a few times. As I said, I used to live in Vermont. I've done a year there.
Oh, wow.
It was yeah, I done an exchange year at the University of Vermont. At the time, I didn't even know where Vermont was. I was just like, just get me somewhere in the US, I'll be down for anything. And I put like just random states that were completely different. I ended up in Vermont.
That's so funny. You ended up in Vermont. It's a beautiful area. It's
Oh yeah,
gorgeous.
yeah. It's probably the most beautiful place I've ever lived. I used to, just outside my room, I used to open the door and it'd be like the mountains in front of me, and I was like, this is
Yeah.
amazing. And but yeah, I had my roommate was from New York, so I went there like 5 or 6 times, and I was like, this is London. This is just the same.
Yeah.
Almost. It's like just,
Same vibe.
yeah,
Same vibe.
same
Yeah.
vibe. And the other point that I wanted to make in regard to what you were saying about Israel, just a little extension of that, is that in Portugal, so since I've moved here, I can't remember if I said this whilst this was recording. I think it was while we were recording. So I'm in a small town in Portugal right now. I plan to go to Lisbon soon to move there. I spend a lot of time in Lisbon, but I also spend half of this time in this small town. And one of the weirdest things being here is everything shuts at lunch. Just shuts. They just shut at 1 p.m., 12 p.m., then they'll shut for an hour and a half, including my gym, just shuts. And because my grandparents, they're Portuguese, but they spent many years in the UK. They're like, oh, people here, they don't want to make money. And a part of me feels like, you know what? Yeah, people here do have a lot of more financial difficulties, but then a part of me is like, you know, that's quite cool, because then they are spending more time with their family and they are spending more time
Yeah.
with their children. And although it can be a little bit inconvenient at times, especially for someone, I find it really weird coming from London, it's just shut. Like, you can't, I
Yeah.
have to go to the gym before or after lunch. I can't go for 2 hours between 1 and 3 o'clock. And it's just
That's
that's
amazing. I love
yeah,
that. It's like they just
yeah.
take like a siesta. It's like, all right, we're gonna relax, like break in the middle of the day. I love that, dude. I think that's amazing. Something in Israel that I love equally as much is, so most of the weekends, I think that most people or most cultures, the weekend is Saturday, Sunday. In Israel, it's Friday, Saturday because of Shabbat. But once Shabbat starts, like from Friday night at sundown to Saturday night at sundown, bro, there is nothing open. Like, there is nothing. And it was funny. I was talking to my friend. She lives in Israel now. She's a lawyer there. And we grew up together. We grew up in the same town. Her name is Jenny. And she was telling me that, she worked as a lawyer here in the United States. She worked as a lawyer here in Chicago. And she was like, 24/7, 365, you are available. People can call you. Things are going wrong. Like, when you're a lawyer here in a big city, maybe even not in a big city, but when you're a lawyer here, you are available all day, every day, no matter what. No weekends, no vacations, nothing off. In Israel, it doesn't matter if you've got a multi-million-dollar deal going through, you are not called on Shabbat.
Mm.
No one will call you. It's like, no, that's your day. That's like, you relax. It's like nothing is open. No one is working. You're with your friends and family. It's like, and I love that. It's one of the most amazing things, because it's incredible to have the opportunity to work and to provide for your family. But if that opportunity doesn't allow you the opportunity to spend time with your family, and it consumes every waking moment of your life, then you're missing out. So I love that there are other cultures, whether you're in Portugal and you get that like siesta in the middle of the day, or in Israel where you have like one day where there is no work, it is family time. Like, I love that. I think it's super, 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 super important. And I actually think it would lead to a longer, healthier life. Especially because if we're really talking about one of the major issues for all cause mortality, just high stress. Chronically high stress is the worst thing you can have for your body. So the worst thing, and most people who are really focused on grinding, it's they're so stressed all the time. So yeah, I mean, for me, I think we needing to find that balance is just absolutely essential, and it's great to have other cultures who are leading the way with that.
Yeah, it's definitely been because I've always heard you speak about it when it comes to Israel, so it's been interesting to see that as well here. Otherwise, so we've got just under 10 minutes left, and I like to finish off with like a little overrated, underrated sort of type of like quick fire round, or if you want to expand on them a little bit, feel free. Some are fitness related, some are non-fitness related, and I would say no. So I'll get stuck straight in. Number one, 15-minute workouts. Obviously, context is important. So, not for someone who's trying to be maybe the number one bodybuilder in the world, but for someone who's maybe just, they're looking to get started with something and they don't know what to do. So
Super underrated. I mean, even for example, last night, my wife, she wanted to get a workout in, and not just for the actual workout, but just she needed time away just so she could get out of the apartment and just for her. But it got to be a little bit late, and she was like, oh, like, I don't know if I'm gonna do it. I was like, no, go, just do 15 minutes. Just go to the gym, do 15 minutes. Unfortunately, our gym is in our building. She went, and the cool part is like it was supposed to just be 15 minutes. It ended up being 30 minutes. But that's often what'll happen is like you think you only have 15, but once you start, it's like, oh no, I can extend it a little bit. I think 15 minutes are extremely underrated for the vast majority of people who just want to be healthier and happier and live longer. Obviously, if you want to be a bodybuilding world champion or like any world champion, then 15 minutes workouts are not going to cut it. But for the vast majority of us, it's fantastic.
Yeah, agreed. And like you said, 15 minutes often ends up being longer. Number two, so back in the summer, I went to Texas for a few weeks. I've done a road trip around Houston, Dallas, Austin. And many times and many occasions I heard about Buc-ees, and I passed by Buc-ees many times. And as someone who's been in Texas for over a year now, Buc-ees overrated or underrated?
Bro, you're gonna laugh. I still have not been to Buc-ees. I just think I've passed by them, but I love Texas. I think it's great, but it's the most cliche thing for people to get excited about in Texas. And for anyone who doesn't know, Buc-ees is a gas station.
Yeah,
It's a fucking gas station. And they've got like hundreds of gas pumps, and they've got great food inside. I've had people bring me food from Buc-ees because they're like, oh, you need to try these beaver nuggets. I'm like, really? Beaver nuggets? Like, what the fuck? Like, this is the most cliche, ridiculous thing that you could be excited about is a gas station in Texas. So I can't say overrated or underrated because I actually haven't been yet. So to be fair, I can't give my real thoughts. I just think preliminarily, there's no way I will ever be excited about going to a gas station. And I know people who go out of their way, who will drive 30 to 45 minutes out of their way just so they can go to a Buc-ees. I'm like, you're out of your fucking mind.
yeah.
So
I heard about Buc-ees so much when I was there. I heard it was just I was like, what is this place? And obviously, as a British person who's only there for a few weeks, I was like, all right, show me. Yeah, it was a gas station that sells pretty much everything, which I can imagine is quite convenient on a long road trip. But you would think that it was
like a
something.
theme park, like a
Yeah,
super exciting theme park with incredible rides and restaurants and characters. No, it's a fucking gas station. And people from Texas get mad at me when I say this. They get really upset, but it's the truth. It's just a gas station. There's so many better things in Texas to get excited about. Like, go to a barbecue place, like go to a great barbecue restaurant. That's way better than Buc-ees.
Next one, tricep dips on the bench. So that your hands behind
Overrated.
your back. Yeah.
It's not only is it overrated, it's just bullshit. It's dangerous. I've seen a lot of people get injured with it. They hurt their shoulder doing it. I would rather you just do regular push-ups or hands elevated push-ups if you can't do push-ups from the floor yet. Just any push-up variation is better and more effective and less dangerous than that.
Okay. And last one, pre-workout.
Ooh, pre-workout. You know, have it that first month of having a baby, pre-workout was very underrated because it helped me, get energized for it. I think pre-workout, actually, this is interesting. I've never spoken about this. I think among the fitness focused crowd, people who are already very involved in fitness, I think it's overrated. They take it far too often. They place way too high of a value on it. They use it too much. They use it as a crutch. For the people who really struggle to get in the gym and to get motivated, I actually think it could be a really good tool in the beginning of your journey, because it's one of those things where once you take that pre-workout, you do not want to skip your workout. And sometimes that's what I do. Like when I'm really, really tired, I don't use it every day. I might use it once to twice a week, maybe 3 times, like if I'm really tired that week, but usually once to twice a week. And I save it for when I'm really tired and I don't want to go work out. So when I'm exhausted, I don't wait until I want to go work out. I will take the pre-workout when I'm exhausted, when I'm tired. And then 15, 20 minutes later, all right, I start to get more energized and I just took pre-workout. I have to work out now. It's one of those things where it's like, I do not want to take pre-workout and then sit on my ass and do nothing. So I think for the crowd of people who really struggle with motivation and getting off their ass and going to the gym, it could be a much more helpful tool at the beginning of their journey. But for the people who've been doing this for a while and use it as a crutch and feel like they can't work out unless they do have pre-workout, then for them, it's overrated.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Very good answer. And an interesting one as well. Overall, Jordan, thank you so much. I don't want to keep you too long. Thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed that conversation. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit nervous for the first 20 minutes, but then after that, conversation just always flows like it always does on a
Dude,
podcast.
you did amazing. It's an honor and a pleasure to be able to speak with you. For everyone listening, I hope you know how lucky you are to have someone like Leo to listen to as often as he's publishing podcasts. If you have not applied for his one-on-one coaching, I don't know what you're waiting for. He's got some of the best coaching in the world. Make sure you do that. Leo, don't even say, hey, where can people follow you? I just want them to follow you. I want them to follow you and apply for your coaching. You're amazing. You're an incredible coach. It's been amazing getting to watch you grow as a coach. And I really cannot wait until I get to see you in person and give you a big hug. But you're the man and you're absolutely incredible. And I hope you know that.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. And like I said at the start of the podcast, and I genuinely mean that, thank you very much for all the guidance that you've given me over just over a year now. All the clarity. Again, if it wasn't for you guys, I definitely couldn't have moved here. I couldn't have come here. And of course, although we've never met in person, you have had a big effect in my life. So again, thank you very much to you and Mike. And yeah, Jordan, take care, and I'll see you soon. I'll see you around. I'll see you on the
I'll see you
next live
soon,
stream.
brother.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Have a lovely day. Bye bye.